to our final ethical dilemma for this final episode. We will be talking about the tech industry, antitrust laws, and what happens when tech gets too big. First, let's discuss what's called data overcollection. In 2016, the GDPR, otherwise known as the General Data Protection Regulation, was agreed upon by the European Parliament and was enacted into EU law to try to protect the privacy and data of EU citizens. Since the instantiation of the GDPR, many large tech companies have actually been held accountable to have healthier relationships with their users' data. In principle number 2 of the GDPR, the regulation stands against data overcollection, which in theory, this principle is supposed to require tech platforms to only collect as much data as they actually need, and to be transparent about all the data that they are collecting. And this principle stemmed from a dangerous precedent that tech companies set, where for a while they were collecting unnecessary data from their users, which risked being harmful if the companies ever actually decided to sell our data or use it against us, or if the data risked being stolen by malicious hackers. Have you ever heard of the expression, data is the new oil? Well, back in 2017, The Economist published a story titled, "The World's Most Valuable Resource is No Longer Oil, but Data." And the idea behind this article was that the oil industry has been largely lucrative and extractive and is bankrolling some of the richest people in the world. And now, data is the new lucrative bankroller, and when it is extracted from users, it's often at those users' expense. So luckily, regulations like the GDPR and the California Consumer Privacy Act have begun to rein in this oil race, so to say, but a lot of damage has already been done, and this damage is largely being done by a select few tech giants.
Yes, and speaking of these select few tech giants, there's the big four. There's Amazon, Google, Facebook, and what's the fourth one? Oh, tartar sauce.
Wait, Amazon, Google, Facebook.
Or maybe it's just the big three because they took all the other companies
I guess
and absorbed them. Or
it could be Apple and Microsoft, I
yeah,
guess.
Yeah.
Hard to keep track.
Oh my gosh, I'm surprised there's that many. So there are a few companies that seem to own a large portion of the market. In entertainment, Disney reigns supreme. Known as the Disney Brothers cartoon studio at its founding in 1923, Disney now owns fully or significantly the following companies according to iFilmThings: ABC, 80% stake in ESPN, Touchstone Pictures, Marvel, Lucasfilms, 50% equity holding with the Hearst Corporation that owns A&E, 50% equity holding with the Hearst Corporation for the History Channel, and 50% equity holding with Hearst Corporation for Lifetime. There's also Pixar, Hollywood Records, 10% stake in Vice Media, and Core Publishing. Whew. Taking a cue from the entertainment industry, tech companies have long grown and acquired companies. Microsoft faced antitrust laws in the late 1990s and was ordered to break into two companies, only to appeal that decision and have it overturned. Google has faced multiple antitrust laws, having to break up into Alphabet Inc. and Google. And recently, Wired reported on the 36 antitrust lawsuits that Google is facing. Quote, the U.S. Department of Justice filed the first case in October, joined initially by 11 Republican state attorneys general. This is the narrowest of the three lawsuits. It claims that Google has used anti-competitive tactics to protect its monopoly over general search and prevent rival search engines from getting a foothold. Most notably, the complaint describes the lengths Google has gone to make sure it's the default search engine on browsers and smartphones, like paying Apple as much as $12 billion each year to make Google the default on Safari and iPhones. With its control over the search market secure, the suit says Google can rake in more search advertising revenue, which in turn allows it to keep the payouts flowing. The DOJ, Department of Justice, argues that this amounts to an illegal scheme to maintain Google's monopoly over search. The second case about Google search, and the third to be filed overall, comes from a coalition of more than 30 states led by the attorneys general of Colorado and Nebraska. It essentially makes the same argument as the DOJ lawsuit, plus a few more accusations. In fact, the states have requested that their suit be combined with the DOJ's. The most important new piece is the allegation that Google has used its monopoly over general search, the activity commonly known as Googling, to discriminate against companies in what's known as the vertical search business, like Yelp or Kayak. The idea is that Google wants people to begin all their searches on Google rather than going straight to a vertical search site or app. The states argue that Google has accordingly made changes over the years to how search results appear in order to keep more traffic flowing to Google's own properties rather than vertical search. That puts those vertical companies in a tight spot, since if users don't easily find them through Google, they may not find them at all. This is illegal, the states claim, because the goal and effect is to entrench Google's share of the search market, rather than to steer users to the best results. According to Forbes, in December 2020, the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, and 46 states filed an antitrust lawsuit against Facebook, who had acquired WhatsApp, Instagram, and Oculus. A judge dismissed the lawsuit, which is being appealed currently by the states and FTC. Now, Dr. SciFi Noble, who wrote Algorithms of Oppression, talks about Google's share of search as a search engine, and also talks about how it is a company that's an advertising company. It is not a search company that's goal is to give you the best search results. She gives examples of how if you do a search on Martin Luther King Jr., there will be a website that comes up that's actually owned by a white supremacist group that purchased a domain about Martin Luther King Jr., and people are becoming radicalized by these search results. This is a big problem, having a small set of companies owning so many portions of the market. And as people are trying to go through the proper channels to get them to be deregulated and to be split up and not be as big as they are, these tech companies are finding ways and loopholes and sort of swimming through the system to continue business as usual. And that's a problem.